I was a fellow in the very first year of EAP. I honestly don't know how I found out about it. It was about a year or so after I came back from grad school in London, and I was getting my footing. I was working in the arts, doing arts fundraising with a little consulting firm, and feeling like, oh, I don't really know what I want to do next, but I don't really want to write grants for the rest of my life. I want to be more involved in the day-to-day. But I felt like a little pulled away from the artistic practice. And so I was trying to think about what I might do next, and I felt like I didn't know that many people. Even though I'd been living here and working here for a while, I was working as a performing dancer and not in the management sphere of things. So my network was really fellow dancers. And so somehow I came across EAP and I applied for the fellowship and I got in. And so I was in that inaugural cohort, which was continues to be an incredible group of people, just doing amazing things, and have gone on to all sorts of walks of life.
My relationship with EAP started when I was accepted into their fellowship program. So for me, they were also a facilitator, a guide, mentor, kind of teaching me all of these, all the nuances of the arts world, and being an arts administrator and arts worker, all this language that I wasn't very familiar with. So I'm really grateful for my time with EAP, and ever since then, I've developed also a working relationship with Rhiannon and Catherine and other folks. It was because of EAP that I had this language to talk about what cultural equity is and how I am living through it right now, and I always use it to describe my work experiences working in this kind of predominantly white space, and it's really hard for me to as an employee to yes, I can be oh, we should do this, we should do that. But I also felt like it was important to bring in an outsider perspective too.
When we had our guest speakers last month, I think just hearing the way that they talked about their lives and reflect on how they got to the point at which they're kind of living in now, which feels really dynamic, feels really whole, feels really matrixed, and really honors all these different parts of themselves. It was just so inspiring, just thinking about wow, maybe in the next 10 years I can get to a place where when I reflect on kind of my journey, I can talk from such a deep, whole place that feels yes, I'm still learning, yes, I'm still growing, yes, it's still hard, and I've learned a lot along the way. I've really come into myself along the way.
I think for me, one of the things that's been the coolest about EAP is all of these really great folks. I think EAP does a really good job of bringing together artists who are really doing thoughtful work that really cuts to the heart of arts in the Bay Area, I think in a very real way. And I think that for me has been so great to witness and to be a part of.
The folks in this group are such special, critical, thoughtful, really just joyful to be around, and yet comfortable enough where it seems like anyone could cry for any amount of time, and that space can be held. The other gift that EAP has given me, and I think Lisa has also talked about this too, is just emergent strategy. Just really using that as a framework in terms of how am I thinking about the ways that I'm living and just being and existing in my body and in this world.
I guess what I have loved so much about the organization and what it does is that it helps me feel connected to other people who are doing this work.
Well, that first year was so different from all subsequent years because the fellowship was so much about just starting to make the organization and decide what it was, and lots of really basic and really foundational things happened.
I was part of a little group of fellows that we made the website.
Right.
That's what we did.
Right. The website, a whole bunch of events.
Yeah.
All the communication tools.
It was very nuts and bolts. in a sort of way.
But at the same time, I'm thinking about the conversations that sort of predated the existence of emerging arts professionals. And I think the initial reasons that people were brought together was for this study that Hewlett and Irvine were doing about next generation leadership. And so that was before the crash, right? And it was at the time that there was a lot of concern in the field that there weren't going to be enough leaders to take over all these spots that the baby boomers were going to leave behind when they retired off into their glorious sunsets. And you know, in retrospect, after the recession happened and those retirements didn't actually occur, it's like, well, who was thinking that this would actually happen? I mean, that's not what happened at all. But I think the thing for me and how I came to EAP was really through that conversation, and like you said, meeting people who were very forward thinking and really wanted the work to be better for everybody who was involved in it.
The arts is all about breaking things, right? Like, you put an artist in front of something and they are going to try to break it. And over and over again, it's just like a compulsion that you have. And that's kind of the opposite of what most of these tech industries are. They always use that word disrupt, but it's not really that disruptive. Like, nothing that they're talking about is that disruptive. It's really just a way of being new enough to sell to people who already have a very similar version of that thing, rather than just like, what if we colored it blue? Like, what's truly breaking the thing? And that's what artists are just so amazing at doing, is being able to break it and then make something new out of it.
Well, it's what are you breaking? So there's
Right.
like a lot of tech, like when they say disrupt, they mean they're gonna break the rules that are in place to protect consumers or protect people in society, but they're not disrupting capitalism.
Yes.
So which part do you want to break?
Yeah, it's funny you think about like the things that are already broken, because I think that folks that are in the arts, and not just artists, like folks that are around arts all the time, are there's not a fear of those things that are broken, right? So you're not gonna like immediately be like, well, it's broken, what are we gonna do about it? It's like, it's broken, cool, this is an exciting challenge to create something. And I think in the arts industry, as an arts worker, we have the struggle between trying to like be this corporate model or try to be a worker. Or EAP has started out as arts administrators, and we only recently started saying worker because administrator is such a tiny slice of the industry. And it sort of excludes teaching artists, it excludes preparators and folks that are like building things. But all of us that are the workers are trying to balance this like capitalist model, a job, all of those things, with recognizing that we're creative people and we're in a creative industry. And I think we struggle with that.
I'm always interested in like building and breaking down curriculum. So like given the folks that are in the room, like what works and what can improve, what can grow. Like, I'm still really interested in the ways that like a lot of folks seem to be in tune to somatic work. We really respond well whenever we have those like 2-minute energizer activities. I don't know. There's something about just acknowledging kind of the sacredness of us sharing this space. Like each Saturday we get 6 hours with each other. That's a lot of time. And so like, how do we, I don't know, really honor that time?
I love when we had like Twee and Joseph come and like bring us food, and like the food and the art being put together. And I think that was just really great. I think that it's just like food is so important in so many different ways. And like being able to nurture someone else, being able to like nurture a community, I think is like one of the most phenomenal things that anyone can do.
You know, thinking about not just where I've gone, but maybe where we've each gone, it's interesting to me that we're now in these positions where we're trying to serve like a big population, an aggregate population. Even though we both started as artists, presenting something very specific, we're taking the professional position of trying to unify, or trying to, not necessarily unify, but to amplify our personal impact, that we reach a lot of different people. And like, as I've made decisions through my career, I think the thing that EAP has helped me do is bring that lens onto it, like to look at it as a system and to know I'm a part of this system, and if I don't like things about it, or if I do like things about it, I need to be an agent within the system and help make that system better in whatever way I see.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That feeling of like moving towards a greater good for all of us, and keeping the things that are working and letting go or experimenting or being flexible around how to make the things that are crunchy or unsustainable more sustainable.
That letting go part is so tough, though.
It is.
I mean, I think especially as I get older, I see more why things just kind of get stuck because, you know, we're not natural risk takers. So it's a tough discipline. Maybe that's another thing.
Yeah, it is. It's super tough. And the more years you do it, you're like, well, this is working. So why, you know, and then like, is it? But is it?
Right.
I guess.
It's
and
working for you, or
right.
It's working for someone else who's
or
been in
it
it
worked
for a long
then,
time.
but does it really work now? Because everything around us is changing all the time.
Well, yeah, that's so true.
If you're going to implement more equity training in the workplace, it needs to be this prolonged thing. You need to bring in consultants over a period of time and work with this institution for like a year plus. And it's that level of commitment that the institution needs to do. Like a 2-hour training is just not enough. It's just like, this is like the shallow, like very surface level, you know?
Right. It's like what happens after the 2-hour training. There needs to be a plan. Like it's not just. Well, they just gave you the that like sexual harassment training, and now you're good. Now you're a feminist.
I know. It's like you need to practice it.
It has
over
to be
and over.
Yes, over and over. And like
equity is a practice.
Isn't that's the thing? I think that practice is like not something that is like culturally in our lexicon, in the greater lexicon, like practice, the act of coming to something without like an end goal in mind, more that like you start at apprentice, you keep coming back, you move through, and mastery has no end. Because the more you know, the more you are a master, the more you can do, the more. So that's a whole ideological shift. Like our businesses and our nonprofits and all these companies are just microcosms of like a, patriarchal system. But it's just, you have to have a practice. That's the act of coming back. There's no done. Right? So remove done. You will never be done. Sorry about it. Like get used to it never being done. And then you're going to be happier, and you're going to contribute better and more, and like you'll give yourself some more time, Like that's good. Ooh.